How's it going, everybody? Jeff Montgomery here from Accurate Rifles and Restorations in Casper, Wyoming. Are you experiencing pierced primers, cratered primers, or blanked primers, as a lot of people refer to it as? You pushing your loads a little bit too hot, causing these issues? Well, we got a solution for you here at Accurate Rifles and Restorations. It's called bolt face bushing. So we're going to go over that today, our technique, how we do it in the shop here, and what you can expect from the end result when you have us do this service for you. What is bolt bushing, you may be asking? Some of you probably know what I'm talking about, but a lot of you probably don't. So this is a service we offer here and many others. It's precision bolt action work. So basically, in a nutshell, it's going to be reducing the firing pin hole where the firing pin protrudes and strikes the primer of the cartridge, and also turning down the diameter of the pin. What that's going to do is help reduce the chances of primer puckering, where you'll see the little bit of where that material starts to flow back in, or worst case scenario, actually piercing the thing and shooting the sheared off material back inside the bolt body. So that's a big problem, especially if you're a competition shooter or a hunter for a dangerous game, or really any situation where you don't want an obstruction inside your bolt body, possibly slowing down or preventing the pin from contacting the primer of the cartridge, causing misfires and all kinds of other problems. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, get comfy, sit back, and explore if this is something you may be interested in having done to your bolt. All right, so bolt bushing, bolt face bushing. What are we talking about here? So here laid out on a bench is most of the tooling and metrology involved. Just to show you right off the bat, here we have two Remington 700 223 sized bolts. So they're basically identical bolts. The one here is your factory original. And this one here has been modified by us. The bolt face has actually been bushed on that. So you can see there pretty clearly the differences without even measuring anything. We're reducing the size of the firing pin hole, and then we're going to go in and actually turn the pin itself down to fit that new size, because obviously the pin would be too large to pass through there. But right there is if that's what you came to see, there you go. If you'd like to hear about how we do it, then stick around. What are we trying to do? What are we accomplishing with this service that we provide our customers? Well, have you ever shot a bolt action rifle and had the primer actually get pierced? I'll insert a picture here showing you what I'm talking about. Some of the signs of overpressure, or sometimes it could just be a weak primer cut material, very thin. It could have been a little bit thin, so sometimes the firing pin will actually pierce that, and then hot gases will shoot back, causing all sorts of problems. For one thing, it's potentially dangerous. You're shooting hot gases rearward and back into the shooter's face. Now, there are ways that they've come around mitigating that danger. For one thing, a lot of, at least Remington 700s, have this port on the bottom, so this is the bottom of the bolt, and actually when it's fired, it'd be on the left side. And so on the action itself, it also has, usually they'll have a port there too, so when the bolt is actually locked up, the gases will shoot off to the right. When it's in the bolt, when it's locked up. So gases would be shot back into the bolt body, exited out of the left side of the bolt, circulated around, and then exited out of the right side of the receiver. Now, inevitably, there is going to be some pressure that builds up and makes its way back this way. But most of it is greatly reduced by the time it's going to hit your face. So a lot of people say they do get a little bit of carbon and gases will if it's bad enough, it'll shoot back, especially a big Magnum cartridge or something like that. So this really only presents itself with hand loaders that are really pushing the envelope with pressure and things like that. But it has happened with just normal factory rounds. I've seen it before, with maybe it's old ammunition that's been sitting around for a long time, or weak material. There's, imperfect world, so things can happen. So basically, this is designed a little bit more towards the precision shooter that's actually pushing their loads a little bit on the hot side. But hey, we offer this to anybody. Anybody can take advantage of the service that we offer. If you're interested for pricing and things like that, get a hold of me. So yeah, this solves piercing primers, cratering of primers, and blanking, and it's spilling its gases, right? The other thing is, when that happens, I've seen this a lot, where a guy will pierce a primer, and sometimes they don't even realize it, especially if they're not keeping their cases. Well, a guy will go and keep shooting or trying to shoot, and they actually won't be able to set off the cartridge, because what happens is that little piece of material gets shot back into that hole, and it goes around the pin, or it gets stuck inside the channel there. So that'll prevent your gun from firing. I've personally seen that a few times, where I'd have to dig out a piece of the primer cup, and sure enough, that'd be inside the bolt body there. Why is this happening? Why does this occur? Well, with a typical Remington style bolt, and a lot of bolts are this size, size of that hole is generally in the 0.075 thousandths of an inch size range. 0.72 to 0.77, I've seen them a little bit bigger, things like that. And when you have it bushed, industry standard is pretty much 0.62, like a 1/16 inch. So we're reducing it by 10 thousandths or more. And so what that does is it reduces the supported span of material, or unsupported span of material, as it were. So if you think about it and you look at it, so here I've got a couple of breaks. One's got a lot larger so we'll pretend that these are firing pin holes. So pretend like this is a bigger version of what we're seeing here for the firing pin hole. And this is going to be our primer cup material, right? Okay, so here we have our little demonstration for you. So like I said, here is our factory unmodified firing pin hole, and here's our bushed firing pin hole. Obviously pretty exaggerated, but just for effect. And here's our primer cup. So this will be like slow motion, but watch what happens on the, obviously on the larger hole. That material has less support. And then of course on the smaller hole, there's a lot more support. So I'm pushing even harder than I did on this one, and there's virtually no flex there. So all that's demonstrating is our new bushed firing pin hole allows more support for that primer cut material. So that's why it actually helps reduce cratering and piercing and blanking. All these things that we do not want to have happen. So this can allow a guy that likes to hot rod his loads, push them to the max, helps reduce that chance. Now, we're talking acceptable pressure levels here, guys. You could still completely pierce a primer if you're going to ridiculous amounts of pressure. There is definitely a physical limitation to that. So this is not going to solve it if you're still pushing those pressures beyond acceptable limits. So just wanted to make that perfectly clear. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this bolt, kind of show you what's going on here. Some of you may have never seen the inside of one of these bolts. So we're going to use this tool to unscrew the firing pin assembly. So this is your typical Remington 700 firing pin assembly. This is actually an aftermarket style. Kind of looks like a gratin. And so that leaves an empty hole, and I've already removed the ejector from this bolt. To further disassemble this, we can use this tool here to get the spring out of there, kind of further show what gets done here. So this is just another tool that helps me disassemble a bolt action bolt. When you push that forward, there's a little cross pin. Push that pin out, and then your cocking piece comes out. And that allows you to remove the entire striker and the spring. So there's your shroud, and then the striker and the spring. So our service includes reducing that hole by means of a precisionally made bushing that will be installed into the face of the bolt and then remachined back down to the original dimensions, and then turning down the tip of that so that it can actually fit inside the new smaller hole, obviously. We make our bushings out of stress-proof, high-quality steel alloy. And so these are basically bushings that are ready to be installed into the next bolt. And they are very nicely funneled. So for the new pin, as you can see, there is a slight taper transitioning the actual tip to the rest of the striker. So this little funnel helps guide that in and keep it encapsulated inside the bolt. So we'll show you on a little crude drawing here that I've made. These are representing bolts, guys. Don't start laughing here. Don't laugh at my drawing. So that's what this is supposed to be, is a cutout of the bolt. So here up top, this is what a typical bolt is going to look like inside before, well, a typical factory bolt. So the original pin is going to be sitting in the bolt like this. And there is something around 1/4 inch, so about 2.250 to 270 worth of travel for this bolt from the cock position to when it fires. And when it fires, it's going to protrude just enough from the bolt face to actually detonate a cartridge like that. Generally 60,000, something like that, something in that vicinity. Well, as the bolt is cocked and retracted, what can happen is the pin can fall down, and then as it's fired, it's going to be forced up, kind of like that, due to very little support inside, because this is just a hole they drill out, and then it ends into a kind of a small funnel, and then to the exit of the bolt. With our bushing that we make here, I make these about 300 thousandths long, so that we're going to be installing this into the bolt face in such a way that it's going to provide this new drawing here representing our bush. So as that pin is retracted, it's still actually encapsulated inside the bolt head. So this keeps your pin centered from being cocked at position to detonation. It's not actually falling down. Well, it is in my crude drawing, but it keeps the pin literally encapsulated inside there throughout the entire range of travel. So cock position to boom, shutting off the cartridge. It's not actually riding up any funnel anymore because it can't. It's actually still riding inside our newly installed bushing. So the bushing would actually in reality sit kind of like right back here. So this drawing's quite a bit bigger than the bushing, but trying to get that across is that how. So from cock position to fired, the whole pin is staying straight. And the pin is fitted to this hole with only about 1/1000th of an inch clearance. So there's really there's just enough clearance for operation, but not so much that it's falling down or anything like that. So that reduces wear and tear on the pin itself and keeps things centered, which actually contributes to accuracy because there's less inconsistencies in the system. So ignition is greatly improved shot to shot because it's not being retracted and then finding center and then ramping up every single shot. This way it's, like I said, encapsulated. So that's an added benefit of what we do here with our bushing system. Okay, so the other thing that tends to happen, which this is not a very good example. I really don't have an example of a bolt that exhibits this problem, but a lot of times primers will leak, and you can kind of see it on this. You see that ring around the hole. So what can happen with a leaky primer, it can actually fire cut a little bit of a ring around that hole. Some of you guys may be familiar with what I'm talking about. You see this a lot on Savages, actually, for whatever reason. I don't know if their material's a little bit softer on the bolt face or not, but tend to see that quite often. And so cosmetically, that's going to clean up all that fire cut damage that can occur. So this is literally a finished product here, guys. This is you can see the machined face and how that's perfectly machined. Looks like a brand new, actually looks like a custom bolt action bolt face, doesn't it? So that's what we're going to do for you with this service here. And by the way, this can be done without affecting headspace. So you could just send me the bolt itself. So all I'm going to need is the bolt and the pin. So I cut these to the exact same dimension that it was previously. So how we do it here in-house is I have a custom mandrel that I make for these that nicely fits the back of the bolt. This will screw all the way in, holding the bolt nicely in the back, which will allow me to grab this with a 4-jaw chuck. Then I'm going to hold this the existing firing pin hole with a live center. I'm just going to shove it in there because it doesn't matter. We're going to be machining it out. So I'm going to hold this, center this body round, and so that this entire bolt is now running as straight as it possibly can. Then I'm going to come in and hold it with what's called a steady rest, which will allow me to have access to the front of the bolt face while supporting this entire portion of the bolt as close to the lugs as I can get it, which increases rigidity for machining. Right, so that's how I hold these in the lathe. So we'll get that running as true as possible, and then we'll come in with basically an end mill, carbide end mill, and then we're going to cut that back. So we're going to cut out the existing hole back far enough to accommodate the brand new bushing. So we'll cut all that back in preparation for the bushings. Now generally I'll make these bushings in advance, and the bushings are made 1/1000 larger so that it's a nice press fit, interference fit into the bolt face. But the way we make these, like I said, it's out of a bar stock of high quality stress-proof steel alloy. And so basically we'll face off the material clean, come in and center drill, and then we'll use kind of a series of drills to accomplish that 0.62 hole. So basically 1/16 of an inch. But if you know anything about machining and drilling and things, a lot of times the hole size is a little bit larger if you just go straight to the nominal size. So we'll use a series incrementally larger drills so that the very final drill, that last size, is actually going to be a true size. It's as close to a reaming operation as you can get. But I don't want to waller it out and make that hole bigger than 0.62 because you're kind of defeating the purpose of bushing anything. Then we will actually cut that funnel feature in there. So that'll be cut. Then we'll extend the material just enough to turn that down to the diameter of the target diameter that we're looking for. Like I said, I make these about 1/1000 larger than the hole, so that it's an interference fit. So there's no chance of this thing ever coming out again without machining it out. So once we got the proper diameter established, I'll go in there and chamfer off the burr off the very edge of it. So basically this surface here, we'll just chamfer that real slightly with a file, because you don't want a burr interfering when you press this in. And then we'll come in and part this off just a little bit long, so that we have some material there to actually machine back down in place inside the bolt body, or inside the bolt head, as it were. So once our bushing and bolt are ready to go, it's kind of a brute operation. All we're going to do, stick this in a vise, hold this rigidly. I'm going to use a little red Loctite around the bushing itself. And I'm going to essentially hammer this guy in there. So I use somewhat of a thermal fitting operation. I'll actually get this, I'll preheat the bolt head. Nothing crazy hot, but just sizzling, just enough that it sizzles on a wet finger. And essentially what I'm going for here is a thermal kind of interference fit. So that will expand this material here, expand it just a bit, and then I'll bash that, I'll actually physically hammer the bushing or press it in, whatever you want to call it, in to place, and then as this cools, it contracts and actually keeps that even tighter. So it's definitely an interference fit for sure. So once that cools off, we'll stick this back into the fixture. So I leave this in the forge jaw, I'll unscrew this so that I can work on the bolt, but if this is still at the same position and the steady rest is the same position, then we'll go ahead and machine the protrusion down to the exact same dimension it was before. So like I said, you could do this without sending me the entire rifle and be confident that headspace is still going to be the same. I use precision measuring equipment to do this. I'll measure before any machining occurs to establish a datum line, and it's usually about 150 thousandths, give or take, from here to the bolt face. I will verify that, record the number so I don't forget it, and so then as I'm machining this back down, once I hit that number exactly on, I know when to stop. So everything is machined precisely. So you'll get this bolt back and it'll work just like it did before, with the added bonus of not piercing any primers anymore. Once that is machined down dimensionally, now it's time to turn the tip of the firing pin. So this is another lathe operation. We'll get this in the lathe and come in with a tool post grinder. Because this is such thin material, you can't really turn it properly. The tool, usually this is so thin it'll push off, so you need what's called a tool post grinder. So it's just a tiny little miniature grinder basically that you can control with the lathe very precisely. So we'll come in and just turn that down, grind it down. And the other benefit of the grinder is it gives a nice finish and it also a true diameter. So the grinder's spinning as well as the pin, and they're spinning against each other. And so it only takes a few passes to get this pretty close down to size. And then once we're, dimensionally there, come in and do a little bit of final polishing on the pin and essentially fit it to the hole. So we want this to have as little clearance, but as little gap as possible for that real nice fit in there. So you can't see any gap around the pin and the new hole, right? So it is essentially sealed when that pin is protruded all the way in, sealing off that hole. So this will be hand polished and hand fit to the new hole. Right. So like I said, it usually falls around 1/1000 undersize of the 0.62. So the hole's 0.62, 0.625 or so, and this is 0.61. So it has enough clearance to work reliably, but certainly no slop. Okay, so after that, it's basically just reassemble it, refinish it. So I left this in the white so it would be very obvious as to what happened. But after this, I'm going to go ahead and refinish it. I'll re-blue it so that it looks like the original bolt, just like that. So it'll be all that bare steel will be re-blued again. If it's a stainless bolt, then we'll just leave it the way it is. But you know, if it's a blued bolt like this one, it'll come back to you blued again. All right, so that's how we bush a bolt face here in the shop at Accurate Rifles and Restorations. I sure do appreciate y'all coming along for the ride, watching the video, and hopefully you got some entertainment out of this, or maybe you're interested in having this done to your bolt. So if this is something you're interested in, you can find all of our contact information down below in the description. Our website will be right there, so you can click that link and it'll take you right to our website. You can find our contact information there. You'll be able to contact me directly, and we can discuss the details of getting your bolt to me for this service, or a vast myriad of other services that we provide here for custom rifle work, as well as restoration services and pretty much anything else that falls under the gunsmithing umbrella, custom gun work and things like that. So if you found value in this video or entertainment, anything like that, could you please give it a thumbs up, give it a like there, click that on the bottom there. If you're not a subscriber, would you consider please subscribing to the channel? We try to upload entertaining or informative videos, or just maybe interesting stuff weekly here on the video platforms. And leave a comment. What do you think about bolt bushing? Is it something you think is beneficial? Have you had your bolt bushed? Any horror stories, anything like that? Please share it with us. We'd love to hear from you. This is Jeff Montgomery from Accurate Rifles and Restorations in Casper, Wyoming. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.